I found the camera on eBay a couple weeks ago. I'm in no way a professional photographer, more of an enthusiast. What I truly love is that old school aesthetic vintage cameras bring, turning even the most unremarkable landscapes into something special. I already own a few film cameras, but that stuff can get quite expensive, and honestly, getting rolls developed is a pain. I always end up putting it off, sometimes for like weeks, or forgetting about them entirely, which means I don't even get to see half of my shots. That's what pushed me toward a compact digital. I wouldn't really call them vintage. I mean, they were around when I was a kid and I'm not ancient yet, but if you play around with the settings, you can still get some cool results. The tricky part? Finding one that was affordable but not a complete piece of junk. I'd nearly accepted the idea of breaking my budget when the listing appeared, like a gift from heaven. Fujifilm A220 12.2 megapixels used but in perfect condition. Fully functional, came with a cable, batteries, memory card, the full package. All for $10. Now, don't get me wrong, I know what they say about deals that seem too good to be true, but I figured worst case scenario, I just wasted $10. Money I'd have spent on cigarettes anyway. You could say I was investing in my own health. And if it turned out to be legit, then I'd scored a real bargain. I purchased it right away. 4 days later, the camera was in my hands and hey, everything seemed fine, apart from a tiny, barely noticeable smudge on the sensor. That was truly a good deal. That truly was a good deal. I took a few test shots around my living room of my cat Coco and even tried a couple of selfies with, let's just say, less than flattering results. But for a proper run, I figured I'd wait until the next day. Mostly because, well, I have a bit of a laziness issue. I left the camera on my nightstand and went about my day. In hindsight, that was the right call. That Saturday was beautiful. Clear, sunny skies. I live pretty close to a big amusement park, and it struck me as the perfect spot to snap some pictures in the late afternoon, right at the peak of golden hour, when the light really does something magical. I came back home pretty pleased and rushed to upload the photos onto my computer. That's when I noticed something strange. Between a shot of the Ferris wheel and my own awkwardly smiling face was another photo. A photo that shouldn't have been there. It wasn't a slip of the finger or some random blur. It was the picture of a room. A room I had never been in. It looked like some sort of waiting room, the ones you'd find outside of a doctor's office. It had pastel pink walls and a linoleum floor of similar color. 3 plastic chairs were lined up on the left, while on the opposite side stood a dark, bluish door and a potted indoor plant placed in the corner. The wall directly facing the camera was entirely taken up by a large window, looking out onto a pale gray sky. I checked the image details, hoping to find something that could explain how the picture ended up on my camera. What I saw only added to my confusion. The photo seemed to have been taken at 2:34 a.m. It made no sense. Suppose I did take the picture and then just forgot about it. How could I have done it in the middle of the night when that room appeared to be lit in broad daylight? Even if I had been sleepwalking, I seriously doubt I could have wandered all the way to a medical office in another time zone, snap a photo, and make it back to my bed all before waking up at 10 a.m. this morning. I turned to the internet, wishing to find an answer, but to no avail. I resolved to do what I had always done best. Nothing at all. Deep down, I was sure there was a rational explanation for what I'd seen. I just hadn't figured it out yet. The only thing I wanted to do was to distract myself, forget about it, and go to sleep. But I couldn't. You see, there was something about the whole absurd deal that just wouldn't leave me alone. That place, though I was positive I'd never been there, It felt familiar in a way I couldn't explain. Of course it feels familiar, I snapped at myself. There are hundreds of thousands of rooms that look exactly like that. No reason to freak out about it. I repeated those last few words like a mantra, again and again, until they didn't make any sense anymore, twisting and twirling in my head as I finally fell asleep. On the next day, the sight of another second picture hit me like a gut punch. If you were to ask me why I opened the gallery, I don't think I could explain it. I had no reason to. I hadn't taken any new photos, and the ones from the previous day, including that one, were already on my computer. Still, there was this strange nagging feeling in my gut telling me to look. I resisted for a while, trying to lose myself in my phone and something on TV, but my thoughts kept circling back. Eventually, I gave in. You know that feeling you get when you're expecting bad news? A failed exam, a rejection from a job, a message from someone you like turning you down. You know it's there, waiting for you, but you stall, not ready to look, because the moment you do, well, it becomes real. And yet you can't help it, whether it's hope, resignation, or just the fact that, you have to. That was the feeling I had as I held the camera in my hands, powered it on, and opened the gallery. And there it was. Just like the first time, it was the photo of a room. Only now something was different. This time, I recognized the place right away. The brown sofa, the armchair, the coffee table, and the TV. Next to them, the small desk with Dad's computer. That was the living room of the first apartment I grew up in. An apartment that my parents sold when I was 11 to move into a bigger house, only where me and my sister wouldn't have to share the same bedroom. An apartment I've never set foot in since. I needed to sit down. Sparking a cigarette, I realized my hands were trembling. Come on, there had to be a logical explanation for those photos, right? But what? Okay, maybe the waiting room one. Maybe I'd woken up at night, seen something similar on TV, and for some reason, taken a photo of the screen. But this? The living room from our old house, still filled with the furniture we brought with us when we moved? Was this something to do with, time traveling? Wait, didn't my pediatrician's office have a room that looked just like that first picture? No, I was losing my mind. There had to be a reasonable explanation. I just needed to find it. I transferred the image to my computer, determined to dig deeper. Unsurprisingly, the timestamp showed it had also been taken at night. 3:02 a.m. to be exact. Then I spotted something peculiar. On the far wall between the two windows was the framed piece of embroidery my mother had made. God bless this home, surrounded by little flowers. But something about it seemed off in the photo. I had to zoom in to be sure. The words, they made no sense. It was just gibberish. Even the letters themselves looked strange, like they had belonged to another alphabet, but somehow still quite familiar. That was it. I had had enough. The camera was clearly messed up. What else could I expect for $10? I slammed it into my nightstand drawer and told myself that was the end of it. I wouldn't use it again. I wouldn't let it mess with my head anymore. That night, I had a nightmare. While most of the time my dreams would vanish as soon as I opened my eyes, this one still lingered, vivid and unsettling when I woke up. In the dream, I was back to my middle school years, sat in the classroom at my usual desk, second to last row next to the window. It would have looked just like any other school days, except that the teacher was actually Frank Wilson, the senior manager for my office. Fixing his cold, dead fish eyes on me, Wilson asked, "Is that report ready?" Hearing that, a knot twisted in my middle schooler's stomach as I realized that I had no idea what report he was talking about. Trying to maintain some sort of composure, I started rummaging through my backpack. But all I could find was a pencil case, an algebra book, and a Power Rangers lunchbox. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, I stuttered, slowly rising from my desk. I really need to use the bathroom now. Without even waiting for a response, I fled the classroom, running into the restroom, where I slammed the door behind me. Inside, the bathroom was unexpectedly large, the size of a school gym, with its floor, walls, and high ceiling covered in dull, dark green tiles. It was also almost completely empty. Only in the far back right corner stood 3 stalls, with an equal number of sinks lined up beside them. In the opposite corner, a wide archway led to what seemed like another room of similar design, from which the only source of light was coming in. By that point, I knew I was no longer inside the school. Although the room was absurdly big, I remember feeling in the dream an overwhelming sense of oppression. It felt like the space itself was shrinking slowly, too slow to be seen, but only felt. I stood frozen for a few seconds, uncertain of what to do. I can't say whether the version of me in the dream truly needed to use the toilet, but I remember a deep instinct warning me not to get close to the stalls. If I did, something bad would happen. Then I heard it. Steps. Coming from the other room. It's hard to explain now, but in the dream, I knew with certainty that whoever was about to enter the bathroom meant harm to me. It must have happened all in a few seconds, but just like every nightmare, those seconds stretched into eternity. Aware of that presence, an unbearable dread surged through me, burrowing into my chest and stealing the air from my lungs. It wasn't just fear I felt, but despair. Complete and paralyzing despair, pinning me in place like chains. The cries and screams that rose within me escaped my mouth only as broken, breathless gasps. Then, a shadow came through the archway, growing bigger and bigger. It was coming. The fear stuck with me for a couple seconds. As I was opening my eyes in the pitch-black bedroom, I exhaled slowly and picked up my phone to check the time. It was 2:40 a.m. Screw you, Wilson, I thought. Right then, a doubt started to form. A ridiculous, pointless one. And yet, the harder I tried to dismiss it, the stronger it grew, digging in until I couldn't ignore it anymore. I got out of bed, opened the nightstand drawer, and grabbed the camera. Hesitated. And then opened the gallery. Waiting for me was a new picture. Maybe if I try hard enough, I could somehow give you a vague idea of the sensations that overtook me upon seeing that image, but I'm afraid that now it's not just words that fail me, but memory as well. For all these emotions grew in me all at once, mixing, shifting, replacing each other so quickly that listing them all would be simply impossible. What left the deepest impression on me, however, was the sudden awareness that somewhere in the far reaches of my mind, a fog had lifted. Something I must have always known, but I was able to hide from myself, had now come to light, made undeniable by the evidence right before my eyes. Though the image was dark, even grainier than the others, it seemed to me clearer than ever. A large room, fully covered in dark green tiles, with 3 stalls and sinks far back on the right, on the left an archway from which the light came. The photo taken just a few minutes earlier. It was taken from my dream. I've stopped trying to find a rational explanation. Over the past few days, I've gathered quite a collection of photographs, playgrounds, swimming pools, some places I know well, others that feel completely unfamiliar. Some I still remember when I wake up. Others, it's like seeing them for the first time. But there's one constant in every photo. A dark, blurred shape. I first noticed it in the bathroom picture, though at the time I must have thought it was just that stain on the sensor. It's always there in my dreams, too, at least in the ones I can remember. Sometimes I can't see it clearly, but I can feel it, its presence, heavy and threatening. When I do see it, it's nothing like the pictures. Not a blurry black shape, and yet I cannot find the words to describe it. It is fear. Raw, suffocating fear, the kind that leaves no way out. And it's getting closer. I see it every day, always closer. Soon, I won't be able to wake up in time. Perhaps I should have spent those $10 on cigarettes. I should have stuck to film. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. A quick shout out to my patrons, Old Penguin, Rinku Star, Melissa Perez, Icy Narrates, Seven Cities Journalist, Cupcake Hips, Eric Cifuentes, Alonso, Austin My Love, Ellie Hutmeyer, Jesse Hartley, Lawrence Wallen, Mr. Sankofa, and William Hartley. I always try to link a different charity in the description, so go ahead and check that out. I'm also going to start having more things on my Patreon soon, so keep your eyes peeled. And as always, I'd love to know how I can be praying for you, so go ahead and drop a comment and let me know how I can do that. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next video.